Rob Gronkowski dealing with the head injury, as you just heard, yet the Patriots still favored by 5.5. Max, should they be favored without Gronk?
No. Gronkowski makes an enormous difference for Tom Brady. When Tom Brady has an unstoppable offensive weapon, you give him one of those, it's almost unfair. I mean, the Giants beat him with Randy Moss, but let's not forget, that was at the end of an undefeated season where the Pats, had they won that Super Bowl, would have been considered the greatest team in the history of American team sports. It would have been, by acclamation. Would have been almost unanimous. Overwhelming offensive weapon, Randy Moss, and it makes everyone, Wes Welker, everyone around him better. Brady has that. When Brady has Gronkowski, they're almost unstoppable. Without Gronkowski, like in last year's Super Bowl, they had to rely on the kindness of the opposing offensive coordinator and coach when they wouldn't just run the ball and would have ended the Super Bowl. They were fortunate to get that win without Gronk. And even against the Giants in 10-11, the second time they lost to the Giants, Gronkowski was compromised. He had, what was it, an ankle, or I forgot, but he was compromised. He couldn't jump. And in fact, Tom Brady threw a Hail Mary into the end zone that Gronkowski couldn't really make his normal attempt on. They are a different team without Gronk. They're still dangerous, but favored by 5. No, not
How
without
about
Gronk.
even Miami? I know Miami always gives them a tough time when they play down there this year, but remember Gronk wasn't in that game?
It makes
they beat up on them.
But Stephen A., you keep bringing up the point that I made. When push comes to shove, Brady starts playing catch with Gronk. Hey, let the grown-ups handle this. Starts playing catch with Gronk. Can't do it. That's a different game.
Don't try to be slick on national television. Don't bring up the 5.5 points. Should they or should they not be favored?
No,
Patriots.
not without Gronk.
Thank you, because you said the 5.5. So if I said something else, you say, well, I'm saying number 5.5. No, I was going to make sure that you didn't use the number.
Was I clear?
You don't believe.
Is it no
I just want to make sure. I just want to make sure.
I understood what you meant.
My brother
For what
want to make
it's
sure
worth.
Maximilian is clear. That's all. That's all. Got it. Patriots should be favored. Patriots should be favored.
By 5.5?
Well, no, I'm not getting into the numbers because I'm not going to let him get into the numbers, Molly. Would you just heard me say that? So why you bring it up? Okay, here's the deal.
Just trying.
We're not going that route. I'm going with the Patriots as a favorite for this reason, the combination of these two things. We bring up last year's Super Bowl, right? And we look at it from the perspective that Gronk was out. I'm also looking at the fact that Edelman is out, which makes me have a heightened level of trepidation about the Patriots. But where I gloss over that and lead to them being the favorites of Max Kellerman is for two reasons. Number one, regardless of how great he looked, the Eagles still have their backup quarterback in the Super Bowl. It ain't Carson Wentz. And I don't foresee Nick Foles having the same kind of game against the Patriots than he did against the Minnesota Vikings in an NFC Championship game with a coach like Bill Belichick having 2 weeks to prepare for him. That's number one. Number two, last year's Super Bowl, Max, who could have easily been the MVP? James White.
Sure.
14 receptions, 110 yards. I'm saying
Julio Jones.
No, I'm talking about for the Patriots. In other words, because you didn't have Gronk, Edelman had about 5 receptions for 87 yards, if I remember correctly. But James White, coming out of the backfield, was utilized as a weapon. Brady threw him the ball. He caught 14 passes. And so when I'm looking at that, and I'm saying, okay, you don't have Edelman this year. Last year, you didn't have Gronk. You don't know if you're going to have Gronk either. Amendola has shown you what he can do. You know Brandon Cooks is a deep threat. You know Hogan and those boys are still available. Talking about utilizing a James White or a Deion Lewis out of the backfield as pass catchers. That's, to me, the Patriots showed that they could use that effectively, and that's why I'm saying
You bring up Deion Lewis. To me, and Amendola is a clutch player, as is Edelman. All these Belichick players, right? Hogan is really, they have
got a lot of heart.
And Brady also makes them better, and Belichick puts them in the right position and all that. The closest thing they have, to me, to an elite offensive player without Gronk, other than Brady, is Deion Lewis. Deion Lewis is the guy that I look at and I go, he may be a little bit different from everybody else on the field. But I don't think he is an elite player, but he has that kind of eye-popping ability. It's actually the other back that can also catch passes out of the backfield.
Well, again, it doesn't matter which back you choose. All I'm pointing out is that they're able to offset and significantly diminish the impact of having lost one of their major components, which is Gronk.
Pats ain't going to be easy. Pats ain't going to be easy, period.
Well, Pats are not going to be easy. Well, again.
Belichick with 2 weeks to prepare is your best point.
So, again, with Nick Foles, a backup quarterback. If it's Carson Wentz, I'm sitting there going like, please, Philadelphia got this game. But because it's Nick Foles, I got to look at it and say, okay, I know what he can do, good, but I also know what he can do bad. And against Belichick with 2 weeks to prepare,
That's a strong argument. How much do you think Gronkowski's absence does affect the spread? Like, if it's 5.5 points, and you're saying, no, don't just say they shouldn't be favored by 5.5. Should they be favored without Gronk? I say no.
I say with Gronk, you got about a 3. He's worth about 3 points.
So it's a 2.5 point game.
Yeah, I say that.
It's a one-score game.
Yeah.
Less under a one-score game, basically.
Yeah.
Boy, that's anybody's ball game.
That's right. But I'm going to go. But right now, you're asking me to bet against Brady because of Nick Foles. And I can't do it.
You know who's showing?
I'm not saying I won't. Come Friday of next week, right before the Super Bowl, when we make our official picks. But right now,
I know my official
Right now, I look at the Philadelphia Eagles, mad respect. I think it's going to be a thriller, no doubt. But you're asking me to depend on Nick Foles to look like he did
there's one more.
against Minnesota. I can't do it right now. I can't do it.
The mayor of Philly.
Can't do it.
Represent for him.
Yeah, there's one more person that you haven't named. Let's see how he looks, and that's Doug Peterson, who did an amazing job the last couple weeks with this team.
Minnesota
particularly
didn't show up either.
Last week. Well, they showed up early, and then they
for one touchdown.
Okay, but early in the game, when the favored team,
they were a travesty.
When the favored team is on the road, you can't say they didn't show up. They showed up early and punched them in the mouth. And Doug Peterson out-coached. Like, look.
And then they put 35 on them. You can't give the Vikings much credit for that game. Come on, Max.
Yeah, no, you give the Eagles credit. We just had a debate about this yesterday. Yeah, you give the Eagles.
The Vikings didn't show up in that game.
But you can't say the Vikings didn't show up. Who was playing the Vikings?
I did.
The Eagles were playing the Vikings. The Vikings showed up against everyone else. The Vikings showed up against New Orleans, who was everyone's sleeper pick this year, right? Actually, New Orleans may be the best team. Vikings showed up against them. Vikings showed up in the regular season when the Rams were flying high, beat them up. Vikings beat good teams this year, including Atlanta, including other good teams. They didn't show up all of a sudden after they went up 7-0 on the Eagles.
All right, you're putting on the Eagles.